Hey guys, it's your girl Snow White. So glad you're tuning into this video because I'm going to show you how to survive on open field fighting, whether you're on Alliance territory or off of Alliance territory. And say that there is no murder ball around you or other allies to help you, well, this video will guide you on the best way that you can get the best traits. Especially when you're invading the enemy's territory and there is no possibility for you guys to swarm in a murder ball and everybody's running all over the place, there's a lot of chances that you can get attacked and probably fill up your hospital. So you really need to have a strategy when you are invading the enemy. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can get swarmed, you can get killed, but there's also ways that you can protect yourself and get good traits. Especially if you're a low power player, it's truly difficult in order to get good returns on your kills, especially when you're facing off those T5s. So what's the best strategy for lower power players to get positive kills? But before we get to the video, you know I'm gonna say it, hit subscribe and turn on those notifications and let's get into it. Okay guys, you got two simple options of selecting your troops. Option 1 is double clicking on the field like this and dragging your troops. The other option is to double click on the avatar on the right hand side, and that will also select all of your troops. However, be aware that when you're doing that, it'll also select any troops that you may not be able to see but are marching into a farm node or into a rally or into reinforcing a building. So with that option, you need to be cautious about it. The best option is to click on what you see on field, and that way you'll avoid taking a march that you don't want. Now, another thing to point out, as you can see, there's always one march that goes in front of the other marches. Why is that, you may ask? Well, that's because you clicked on that march essentially and dragged the marches, so it'll select that particular march and move them forward. Now, why does the system do that? Because actually it does benefit you to click on a march that's more tanky, but let's say it's a slower march and you want him to be in front. So say you have an Alex and the rest of the marches are all calves. Obviously your infantry will be a lot slower, but you want your tankier march in front, so double clicking on your Alex and dragging those marches will land Alex in front position while the rest of the marches will be behind. Now let's get into actually moving your marches on the field. There are little tricks that you can use here. As you can see, I've got about 4 marches that are on the field. Now I want to move these guys, and I'm assuming that I'm on some enemy territory, even my own territory. It doesn't really matter. If I double click on them and I drag them across a building like this and position the arrow really close to that building, I will actually be marching through that building. But if I drag the arrow and put it further away from that building, it'll cause my marches to go around that building. So this will also take a lot longer for my marches to reach the destination because it needs to go around. And that's something that you really need to be careful with, especially if the enemy is chasing you. And they may have fast marches, you may have some slow marches, so you want to try to escape as fast as possible and more effectively. And the best way of doing that when you have multiple marches, instead of going around the buildings, is simply just double clicking on them on the screen and dragging them all, and make sure that when you're going through the buildings, you position the arrow quite near like so. And that way it'll make the march go through. Now you can see Boadicea is actually going to beat CC to the finish line. And normally that wouldn't happen, but because I dragged her through the building and CC had to go around, it bought me some time to get to safety. So one more demonstration, simply double clicking on them, drag the marches farther away, it'll make them go around the building. And if you double click on your marches and you position the drop point really close to that building, it'll make your troops go through that building, saving you a lot of time on field. Now you can see that my Alex is returning from a rally. and he is actually positioned a lot further than where my other 4 marches are. So if I was to double click on the right hand side, you can see it selects all of them, regardless of where Alex is and where my other marches are. So I can regroup them if I need to. So this is what I mean when I say be careful on double clicking on the right hand avatar images, because that'll select all your marches that are available. There are some obstacles that your marches can easily walk through. These are obviously any of the forts or any farm nodes that are around. You don't have to go worry about these guys going around them. The only thing you need to worry about is the buildings, such as other people's castle or fortresses. Even flags don't really matter. Your marches will go through them. Now you can see I drag my march here through this castle and next to this flag. Technically, you would think that the march would go around the castle, but it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because of the flag. The flag will act as another building. So you can actually click quite near a flag or further from a flag, and the march will still walk through the building that's in front of you instead of going around. But that only applies to one building. It won't do that if you have 2 castles in front. It'll then go around the building. Now let's get into reaching your destination quickly. If you're on your alliance territory, say you're chasing a farm killer or you just need to get somewhere really quickly, make sure you use your surrounding farm nodes, buildings, flags, fortresses, whatever you have in order to bounce through. So simply click on your march, drag it into that node or building, and before it gets in, just make sure you've got him selected again so you can quickly pull him out into the next building. Now, the best option here for me is just holding on to him on screen, and that way I can just calculate the time required for him to get in and I can quickly drag him out. But say you accidentally, lose your finger holding on him and he's in the building and you don't know how to get him out, well, don't worry, real simple. On the right hand side, you click on his avatar and you can simply just drag him out from there. This strategy should always be used on open field in order to reinforce rallies or get to a destination or even escaping the enemy. And especially if you're chasing those farm killers, well, you're gonna have to bounce in and out real quick to catch those guys. Now, another really important thing that you need to be careful and mindful of when you're battling on open field. If you have 5 marches, or say you're with a group of people and you find a target, in this case I'm using a barb as an example. When I attack this barbarian, you can see that my troops start to wrap around the barbarians. If there's multiple marches, let's say there's 10 of you and you find a target and you're attacking that target, you're gonna wrap around. The same concept goes when you're attacking a city, rallying a city or swarming a city, I should say. Your troops are going to start wrapping around. Now, you need to be very careful when this is happening in a war zone. If your troops start wrapping around that particular enemy, anyone coming from behind is going to attack you from behind, and none of your commander's AoE damage are going to take effect here. They're only targeting that other march that you're all swarming. So anyone attacking you from behind is going to get a lot of trades and kills from you. This is particularly something that happens a lot in the murder ball, especially when you're a lower power player and you're further in the back of the murder ball and you start attacking an enemy and you've noticed that your marches start wrapping around and going further deeper into the enemy's zone, and then you get attacked by the enemy's murder ball. So this, you always have to be careful. Make sure that your marches are always facing the enemy, and if they start wrapping around, recall that march back so he's not going to get attacked from behind. Now here I am actually near the enemy's territory. I've got very few of my allies close by. A lot of enemy buildings are nearby, And you can see that I don't go on the enemy's territory. One, they also have more attack buffs if they fight on their territory, and that's what this Saladin is trying to do. He's trying to get me to go onto his territory, but I ain't falling for his tricks. So I'm gonna keep clear of his territory, clear of all of their buildings, to avoid being swarmed, because they can easily pull out 5 marches each, and I've only got 3 there, and they can easily kill me and swarm me. So you have to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings, what buildings are around, especially if there's T5s around. And you know, you may have 5 marches and think, okay, well, I can handle it, but he's by his building. He can just go in and out, refresh the marches, and keep attacking you with full health marches. So you want to avoid giving them the upper hand. So make sure you keep a good distance, don't fall for their baits, and always have an escape route planned. So here I have one of my friends in 2390 who wants to tank, and he goes on to enemy territory. And of course I need to go and help him. So I go knowing very well that this is not going to end up good for me. But either way, for the part of demonstrating this video, you can see that I start wrapping around and swarming him. And of course he takes off his target and starts to attack my marches. And you can see my Saladin is starting to melt here. So instead of just staying there and taking the hit, I drag him out of there. You don't want to stay and let him die, basically. Try to get him out of there as soon as he hits yellow, any of your marches. And I'm also trying to pull the enemy off of their territory, which of course they don't, and they start targeting another one of my troops. Now he's targeting my El Cid. So what do? I try to rescue El Cid and pull him out as well. And again, trying to drag the enemy off of their territory. Now I am able to save the march because of course they're going to target another one of my marches because they don't want to go off territory. And then of course some more people come to our rescue and they flee. So this is the whole point of being careful. You don't have to leave your marches there to let them die. Try to drag that march away. Try to get the enemy to come off of their territory. You know, try to use strategy to obviously survive and get better trades. Now, another really huge mistake that a lot of players make is sending off your marches into a rally and not keeping an eye on them when they're returning. As you can see at this point, a lot of the marches are just returning from a far distance rally and the enemy was waiting for them. And of course, one by one, they would swarm each march that's returning, and a lot of them did die on the way home. So you always got to keep an eye on all of your marches. Check for lines on the map, see if there's any enemy nearby. Sometimes they're hiding in flags, so be cautious with that as well. And just try to avoid any buildings, any paths that maybe the enemy could be hiding in, and just use nodes if possible to maneuver, and sometimes even going the long way. You know, as long as your troops are returning safely, that's the whole objective. Now, my final tip is the active skill that your commanders require is usually about 1,000 rage in order for it to take effect. Now, this is kind of like barb chaining. Think of it that way. When you're chaining barbs, and if you're continuously hitting one barbarian after another, your rage is continuously growing. So it doesn't reset until obviously it takes the skill damage and then it'll reset again. So when you're engaging in the enemy, if you're continuously engaging one enemy after another, your rage is continuously increasing and it won't reset, which is ideally what you want. So let's just recap all the little tips that I have offered. Make sure that when you are actively fighting, that your active skill and your rage is continuously working. Don't let it stop, don't let it reset. So continuously try to keep engaging the enemy if possible. Also, make sure that when you are attacking a troop or a march, that your troops themselves don't start wrapping around and going into a danger zone where people can attack you from behind. You want to keep your AoE in front of you so you can provide more damage. And when you are double clicking on your marches that are on screen, that'll select your marches that you visibly see on the screen. But it won't select any marches that are further away or are reinforcing a rally or another city. So be careful when you are double clicking on the right hand side icons on your avatars, because that'll select all the marches that are available. And maybe you don't want that march to be selected. And finally, make sure that when you are either trying to reach the enemy or run away from the enemy, that you use your surrounding buildings, and that you can go through obstacles if you position your drop arrow at the closest point to that building. Instead of going around, you can go through the buildings. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope that this video will help you fight a lot more effectively on open field and that you don't fill up your hospitals. See you on my next vid.